Today's lesson is on the coordinate plane and plotting points. You need to be taking notes on your handout. You may pause this video at any time if you need more time to write down, and then you can start it again. But you need to write down on your notes what I'm doing up here and pay attention and take this seriously, please. Okay, your first example says to label the x-axis. So I'm going to put an X right there at the x-axis. Next, it tells us to label the y-axis. So I'm going to put a Y on the y-axis. The next thing says to label the origin. The origin is right in the middle, so you'll put a point and you'll put 0, 0 in parentheses. The next point to plot is 3, 2. You always label your points X and Y. You always put X and Y underneath a point. So you will go 3 on the X. So 1, 2, 3 on the X and up 2 on the Y. And that point 3, 2 is right there. So 3 is your X value and 2 is your Y value. The next point, -1, 6, label that X and Y. Since it's -1, you're going to go left 1 and then up 6. -1, 6. So you always start back at the middle for each new point. You always start back at the middle. The next point, -5, -4. You're going to go left 5 because it's negative. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and down 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So -5, -4. Left 5 and down 4. The next point you need to be very careful on, 6, 0. Label that X and Y. If you will label it, you will get this one right. So make sure you're labeling. 6 is in the X spot. So you're going to put 6 on the X. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the X axis. And that is your point. 6, 0 goes on the X. The next point, label, 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 X and Y. This time, 3 is in the Y spot. So I'm going to put a 3 on the y-axis. 0, 3. The next point, 0, -6, label X and Y. So -6 goes on the Y, so I have to go down 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and label that 0, -6. The last point, -1, 0, label X and Y. -1 is an X, so it goes on the X axis. So I'll put a point at -1, 0 and label it. Underneath the graph, it says definition of a y-intercept. A y-intercept is a point on the y-axis. It is a point on the y-axis. So if you look at our picture, our graph, where it says examples of y-intercepts, there's 3 points on the y-axis. The first one we see at the top is 0, 3. The next point is 0, 0. And the last point on the y-axis is 0, -6. The question says y-intercepts always have 0 for what coordinate? Well, if you label your points right here, you can see that they all have a 0 in the X spot. They all have a 0 in the X spot. Okay, if you need more time to write this down, then press pause, but we're going to go on to example number 2. All right, example number 2, it has you label 4 points. So this is example 2. All right, the first point, 2, 6, label X and Y. So I'm going to go right 2 and up 6 and put a point. Make sure you're labeling those. The next point, -3, 1, label it X and Y. Always start back at the middle, and you're going to go left 3 and up 1. The next point, 4, -3. You're going to go over 4 and down 3. And then remember, especially on these when they have a 0, you need to look very carefully. 2 is in the Y spot, so I put 2 on the Y axis, so that's the Y. So 0, 2. And I need to go back and label, this was -3, 1, and this one was 4, -3. The next example, example number 3. The first point they give us is 4, 0. Let me write up here that this is example 3. So 4, 0, I'm going to label it X and Y. It's a good idea to go ahead and label this is the X-axis and this is the Y-axis. So you're going to go over 4 and put it on the X. So that's 4, 0. The next one, -5, -2. Start at the middle. You're going to go left 5 since it's negative and down 2 since it's negative. -5, -2. Point C, 6, -5. 6 is positive, so I go right 6 and down 5. And I'm going to label that 6, -5. And the last point, label, label, label. X is 0, Y is -4. So I'm going to put -4 on the Y. So I'm going to go down 4. Label that 0, -4. All right, for the on your own, you have a graph on your paper. I want you to plot the following points. Take a couple minutes and plot those points, and then I will give you the answer in a couple of minutes. Actually, what I want you to do is go ahead and pause this video. Go ahead and pause it. Plot these 6 points on your paper. When you are done plotting the 6 points, press play and check your work. So go ahead and pause and plot these 6 points. Okay, the answer, XY 3, 2 is there, -4, 1 is there. 5, 0 is there. -1, -4 is there. 0, -3. 0, -3. And 2, -6. Make sure you label them X and Y. All right, now you are going to put your computer back in the cart and you're going to work on your classwork assignment, which you need to do silently. This will be collected for a grade.